Hey everyone, Simon here with an in-depth compatibility lesson on how we look at powerful compatibility in a chart. And we're going to use two examples today of a famous couple, Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman, and a private chart from my private collection on a couple that has been together for a very long time. And we're going to look at what works in their charts, what doesn't work, and how these successful couples have learned to cope with that and to make the most of it. So if you don't know who Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman are, they're Hollywood royalty. And what I like to do is look at people who are in the news. And of course, there is a new documentary about Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward's marriage and how they were just an extraordinary couple that lasted over 40 years or more of marriage, despite Hollywood's temptations and all that stuff. So you can check out that wonderful documentary. And we'll look at some of the features of their relationship and what worked and what didn't work. Because FYI, not everything is great in their compatibility. So we'll look at how they handle that and how they dealt with it. But before we begin, and before we get started with looking at their actual compatibility, I want to go over, I'm going to give you a little bonus here and go over what I actually look at to determine compatibility. And the first thing is, before you ever go into what we're going to talk about today, which is matching two charts together, is we actually have to look at your chart to see what kind of personal baggage you are bringing in. And I call it a 120-point inspection because we look at about 120 different variables to see what's going on in your chart. Why? Because your chart, your seventh house, reflects your relationship karma. The issues you have are going to be brought up by the partners that you attract and invite into your life. So believe it or not, your partner's issues are shown in your chart, and your partner will reflect your own issues. This is why the first and the seventh house are opposite of each other. So what is the point of this? The point is, the more you work on fixing your own issues, the better the reflection will be. You will get a better reflection, i.e., a better relationship. The more, let me say that again, the more you work on yourself to fix any personal handicaps you may have, the better relationships you will attract. And what does it mean then to have a personal handicap? Well, we've done a whole class, a whole masterclass on the personal handicap. And that's on my website here. Nadia and I have done that. It's available on my website, decodingvedicwisdom.com. But I've talked about in my free videos on YouTube as well, what are some personal baggage issues like Mars-Venus relationship? You know, what is the Mars-Venus inconjunct? What does that do? And a whole number of other things, right? It's a 120-point inspection. You know how your car, when you take it to the mechanic, they give it a 12-point or a 50-point or whatever, 70-point inspection, same thing. So that's the first leg. Really, you may find your soulmate, right? If we may find a chart of a person who is perfect for you, but if you're, you know, if you're carrying baggage in the relationship, and it could be something that's not your fault. Maybe you suffered abuse when you were younger. Maybe you experienced post-traumatic stress due to whatever events in your life. Nonetheless, that baggage has to be dealt with, right? You have to work on it at the very least, so that you can recognize and make the most of the relationship when you find it. So today we're going to talk about synastry, but this is in the context is you have to start with personal baggage. All right. Then the second leg is what I call the ancient methods. These are the Hindu or Jyotisha or Vedic methods of matching people using the kutas. And that's basically what I call a 12-point inspection. And so I always start with that to make sure that the ancient methods line up. So let's go ahead and take a look at that for the couple. In this case, Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman. All right. So we're going to look at Ashtakuta here, check. Now, I use Cosmic Insights, wonderful app that I help program this protocol. And for those who may be interested in coming into our Divine Compatibility class, which is actually starting this weekend, but if you're watching this a few days later, you're welcome to join. We're just the introduction is happening this weekend. We have our own software that is for Vedic astrologers, but even more specifically for members of our class. It's a software that's designed to show you our calculations and to do all the hard work for you. This is the night mode. You can see this is a preview of it, and it shows you we've got graphs, we've got scores. This is the day view, and it gives you all the combos that we've created all on one page, so that you don't have to do the math and all the work. So this software, it's $150 value, is yours free. You come join the class. But otherwise, you can go here, and this is a wonderful site with so much information, including the Cosmic Compatibility module, and it will give you the ancient method, Ashtakuta, and the modern method. So let's take a quick look. Ancient method. Now, if you don't know this, here's a quick rule of thumb. Anything above 18 or above is fine. Okay. So here, this is the Ashtakuta for the moon. It's 25. Great. That's a great score. Here it's 19 for the ascendant. That's fine. So they pass the ancient method test. Now, what if a couple doesn't pass this test? What if they have 12 here? That's a problem. Even if the modern method is very healthy and good, if they have a 12 or a 10 or a 5, a bad score, any like 17 or below, then that relationship is going to be, the relationship longevity will be tested. And then what you need to do is know how to go through each of the elements and to spot what is the issue. So if the issue is yoni, then it may be a sexual incompatibility. But perhaps even more importantly, the issue is nadi, for example. There may be a health issues in the relationship, and so forth. So this is something that I'm not going to talk about today, but you don't need to worry about these if the score is 18 or above. If it's below, then you have to take a look at what's causing the problems and then how to do remedies. Okay, now at the risk of repeating myself, we also have a remedies class, which is Divine Love Part 2. Now, remedies are important because, like I said, not all relationships are perfect. In fact, we'll look at one of the remedies that Joanne and Paul naturally implemented. They actually did it themselves without, knowing Jyotisha, presumably, although Joanne was a fan of astrology, I understand, to make their relationship work better. And remedies, I'm just going to go back to this sheet. They're actually one of the secondary relationship legs. They're called upaya, using various remedial methods to improve an existing relationship or to invite new positive relationships. Okay. So if there is a little, you may have the 3 legs of this stool are there, or maybe one of the legs, like I mentioned, the kutas are low. Well, you can repair that leg. You can add, some staples, you can add some tape and glue and fix it so it won't be quite like, having 25 points, but if you have 12 points, it may be like having 18 points in the Ashtakuta. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. We haven't even started yet, okay? But we haven't started with the synastry, the modern methods. But what we're talking about is the ancient method, which is a 36-point system, and you need a minimum of 18 points to be able to move forward with a relationship. Again, if you don't have it, there are remedies you can take, right? That's one of the secondary relationship legs on how to fix a current relationship or improve or invite good future relationships. All right, so their Ashtakuta looks good. Now let's move on to modern methods. So it says here, relationship is amazing. We're going to start with the core connection. Core connection for them is 19.5. This is measuring their sun sign compatibility, which is basically what newspapers and magazines check, right? They check this. So if Joanne and Paul were to do their sun sign compatibility in the back of a magazine, it would tell them they're not a good match, believe it or not. Why? Because the sun values ethics, religion, values, politics. And so, you may be a liberal and your partner may be a conservative. And that may be a problem for you in the relationship. Now, Joanne actually says, I was never interested in the stuff he was interested in. He liked race cars and smoking cigars with his friends and doing all this stuff. She was into astrology and, all kinds of other things. So that reflects the fact that, look, they had different ideals and maybe even politically they were different. That by itself is not enough to make or break a relationship. That's why we look at the moons. Now look at this. Even though their sun connection is not good, their moon connection is phenomenal. Phenomenal. That means emotionally, they understood each other. They understood each other even if they didn't say anything. They understood each other even if they were in different rooms. They understood each other even if they were in different cities. They knew what the other was thinking and, more importantly, feeling. Why? Because the moon rules your mutual likes and dislikes, tastes, and so forth. So they have a phenomenal emotional connection, and that is enough to overcome a poor sun sign connection. Okay, but let's go on. What is their Venus connection? Romance. You got to have some romance, and that's very good. This is a very good score. Anything in the pluses is good, right? And +6 is very positive. Then their ascendants, personality, phenomenal. Their physicality, habits, things you do on a day-to-day basis, they jive perfectly. Okay? And the ruler of the ascendant is kind of mutual support and so forth. So overall, their core compatibility, despite the little hiccup with the sun, is quite positive. It is actually amazing. All right. So moving on to their soulmate indicators. This is, again, amazing. A massively positive score. Soulmate indicators are things I've talked about on YouTube, like when a moon-Mars connection, a sun-moon connection, Venus-Sun connection. Check out my other videos on soulmate connections in the horoscope, okay? This measures those and a lot more. It measures probably about 12 to 15 factors. Okay, so here, this is also amazing. So far, this looks like an amazing match. But when you get to it, then look at this. Hidden strengths and weaknesses. This is the effect of Jupiter versus the effect of Saturn. Guys, this is terrible. Terrible, meaning there's a lot more Saturn than there is Jupiter in their charts. Now, one of the strategies, if you have this with your partner, like there's a lot of your Saturn is hitting their Venus, their moon, and so forth. If there's a lot of that, then one of the strategies is to spend time apart. And in reading Joanne's Wikipedia page, it says, she says, oh yeah, we spend 6 months of the year apart. And I did a double take, like, what? Yeah. They programmed alone time into their relationship. Why? Because when you have too much Saturn, more Saturn than Jupiter. So notice here it says, Saturn's harsh vibes overwhelm Jupiter's supportive influence, making for some difficult lessons where criticism, insensitivity, or downright fighting will flare up from time to time. But don't worry. If your compatibility is otherwise strong, this tension can make your relationship stronger, meaning you will have disagreements, but be ready for a bumpy ride. Now, yes, this would not work if their soulmate indicators were low, if their core connection were low, okay? This only works because they have other strengths that bring them up. And you'll notice the Saturn is, her Saturn aspects his ascendant. Her Saturn aspects his moon. Her Saturn aspects his Venus. And then his Saturn aspects her ascendant. That's a lot of Saturn, folks. And of course, here we have remedies for you, and we have some potential things they can do. But one of the essential remedies is to give each other space. And they naturally understood that, and they did that. They lived even in separate homes on the same property towards, in their later years, giving each other time to develop your own interests. If it were me, I could turn up the guitar nice and loud and play terribly without, disturbing my partner. And then she could, work on her gardening and have hundreds of plants in the house without feeling like I'm choking, and feeling like I'm in a jungle like that. Now, of course, they have a lot of money and they can afford to do that. If you live in an apartment together, you have to work out your version of that, what it means to have space. And oftentimes it means, look, you go out and do things and I get to be at home with myself for a few hours. That's my alone time. Then I'll go out and do things, work, shopping, whatever, and you get to stay at home for 3-4 hours and just breathe. If you have this kind of Saturn, that's one of the great remedies. Next, karmic glue. Oh my God, karmic glue is off the charts. So karmic glue, we measure all the outer planets. We measure the nodes, Rahu, Ketu. We measure their effects on the inner planets and how that affects you. Because karmic glue measures stuff that's kind of out of your control. Whether you want to be with someone or not, you're kind of pushed together. That's karmic glue. Now, karmic glue can be great if you have good compatibility, meaning good core connection and so forth. Karmic glue can be a problem if you have poor connections, because then you're stuck with someone that you can't stand, right? And that's a problem. So karmic glue is not a measure of compatibility. It just tells you how sticky your relationship is. And of course, this one is sticky as hell. So if you ask me to predict, is this relationship going to last? Just based on this, I'd say most probably yes. Even if it's good or bad, I don't care. It's probably going to last because there's too much karmic glue. All right. Fortunately, it was good as indicated by the core connection and the soulmate. All right. Next, who am I to you? Does being with me bring you up in society, in the world, in the eyes of friends, neighbors, and bosses and so forth, or does it bring you down? Of course, their score is off the charts. Being together made each of them more famous, more, respected and so forth. All right. Is there any danger of breakup? There is some danger. Some of that Saturn's got to play out. So I'm sure, there were some fights and stuff. And the final final result is amazing, truly exceptional match. All right. So I mentioned it. So this is one famous example. Now, if you want to know how to do these calculations and how to do them all by hand, again, we have the Divine Love Masterclass compatibility. I go through every combination and how to do each of these by hand. And then we give you the software to do it. Here, we don't show you all of the inside scores, the inside stuff on what's measured. We give you the final score. On core connection, we give you the measurement, but not how we measured it, right? So in this class, we'll go through everything and we'll give you the software to be able to make the most of it. All right. Now let's take a look at an ordinary couple, not a famous couple here, who also has amazing compatibility. Now, starting with their Ashtakuta, very, very strong enough from the ascendant, right? So that's the prerequisite. Remember, we checked part 1 here. Then we go to the modern methods. Core connection. Look, again, an amazing core connection, just out of this world. Sun sign compatibility, great. Moon sign compatibility, great. Venus is great. Ascendants, great. All of it checks out, okay? Then we go to soulmates. they have very low soulmate, and this is very low, okay? This means that they may not have that, oh, magic. When we met, it was like magic and stars were exploding in my eyes and, my heart fluttered and all. No, they probably didn't have that. What they did have is a great personality connection. Like, this is even better than Joanne Woodward's and Paul Newman's. They just get along without necessarily all the stars fluttering, in the skies, raining flowers down on them. That's the soulmate stuff. Hidden strengths. Remember I said if it's positive, it's good. If it's negative, it's bad. It's pretty good. It's not like -20 like the other couple, like Joanne. Karmic glue, pretty good. It's strong. It's not, what Joanne Woodward's was with Paul Newman, but still good enough. Who am I to you? Okay. So any danger? Zero breakup combos. So with them, the major thing is they just get along. And so this couple has been together since they were kids, and they started off being friends, and then eventually they became a couple, and they've been together for like 15, 16 years or so since they've been teenagers. Again, not a different kind of compatibility. So I'm showing this to show you that not every good compatibility has to look the same. They don't have to fight, they don't have to spend time apart. So in fact, this couple travels together, they're together most of the time, and they work together. Unlike Joanne Woodward, they had different, they were in the same field and they did some movies together, but they ended up spending 6 months of the year apart because their hidden strengths and weaknesses were so low, right? The Saturn. Here, they don't need to spend time apart. Why? Because that's not necessary to fix their relationship. They work together, they travel together, they live together. Okay? Karmic glue, and that is a way for them to increase their stickiness by actually spending more time together. Because if you don't have a lot of karmic glue, one way to become more sticky is to spend time together. If you have plenty of karmic glue, then you can be on the other side of the world and you're still going to feel like you're stuck with this person. All right. So, and then the final result, a great score, an outstanding relationship. Now, so I want to show you guys how to do this. This is an example of 2 charts where the relationship works, but it works for different reasons. It's not the same kind of relationship. And if we go back to an issue here, if we look at Joanne Woodward's chart, so this is now, I'm transitioning to a different segment. You can analyze just by looking at a person's chart what some of their personal baggage might be, what some of their issues might be. She has a very prominent Neptune opposite her Venus and Sun. Now, I use the outer planets, especially when it comes to personal handicap, because they are kind of invisible, subconscious factors that affect how we behave. Neptune is the most idealistic and kind of sometimes naive kind of influence. But Neptune-Venus is one of the classic combinations for acting or for art or for the art of acting and so forth. And she was an acting coach and a theater major and truly someone who appreciated the fine art of acting and was able to teach it to others. Neptune Sun is what we call the wake and bake combo, which is the combination for altered states of consciousness, and it can be spirituality or so forth. So someone who likes to check out. So when we look at personal handicaps, and if they were sitting in front of me, this would be one of the things I'd want to address, like how this plays out in their relationship and how we can make them connect and maybe communicate better So they don't have to spend 6 months apart. Maybe they could spend 5 months apart and still make this relationship very successful. Anyway, I thought I'd point that out. I mean, this is a very unique and lovely combination in many ways. So, okay, so that's it for this lesson. It's an overview on how to look at a chart, 2 charts rather, for a complete picture of what their compatibility looks like. And there's more to it. There are more legs, namely the timing. So even though 2 charts may match up very nicely, if you are in a period that is very bad for relationships, and so is the other chart, then no matter what, you're not going to get together until you switch to a better period. Furthermore, if, say, Joanne were running a Mars dasha, okay, and Paul were running a Saturn dasha, those 2 planets are inimical to each other. So there will be some problems, even though your charts may be perfectly matched. And there are ways to deal with this as well. So again, matching is what my favorite part, which is the class we're starting right now this weekend, August 20th. It'll fully get going on August 27th, when after the introduction. All classes are recorded, so if you want to join us, please feel free. But we will talk about some of these factors, even though compatibility will be the main focus. The final factor is, and I'm going to give you a quick hint since you guys have stayed until the end of this video, is where you live. So as you know, your chart changes based on your location, and that is a factor. And that's something I'll probably tackle in on another video because it may be a little too much information for now. But where you live can change how you experience relationships. And if you've noticed, hey, I just moved to LA or I just moved to Mumbai, and I used to have good relationships, but now they're terrible. Well, take a look at your chart in LA, in Mumbai, to see how is your 7th house. You know, what does your chart look like? And that can give you some clues on whether or not you'll be successful in that place. All right, folks, that's it out of me. That's it for now. We'll have another video soon. Hope you can join us for this relationship compatibility class. It's the only one of its kind where we cover every aspect of compatibility. Go to decodingvedicwisdom.com to check it out, and we'll see you next time. Namaste. Hari Om.